There's an easy way to get more power to create the future you want from your subconscious and your conscious mind. Without realizing this, you'll have less natural, creative problem-solving abilities and more difficulty creating high-level results that you're proud of. It'll be like driving with one foot on the brake, so let's give your mind more power to be extraordinary. You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 195, Boost Your Subconscious Power to Create the Future You Want. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, my friend, and welcome to the podcast. You are so great. I hope I'm not the first person to tell you that today. Know that it's true, and thanks for being here. How's your confidence in your ability to avoid getting Alzheimer's? It's pretty cool that we're learning more things about things within our control that can create the kind of future we want. Today, we're going to talk about using both your subconscious and your conscious mind to boost your chances of creating the future that you want. But first, let's talk about a cool lady named Bluma Zeigarnik. She even has a cool name. She was born in a Jewish family in Lithuania in October of 1900. Think of what your prospects would be as a girl in the pre-Soviet area and in that era. She studied at the University of Berlin in Germany starting in 1922, while her boyfriend studied at the Polytechnic Institute of Berlin, and in 1924 they got married. She graduated in 1925 and went on to graduate with her doctorate degree in 1927. That alone is pretty cool. While she was doing her research there, she worked with her mentor, Kurt Lewin, doing experimental work that eventually resulted in a conclusion called the Zeigarnik effect. If you're thinking that being Jewish and in Germany in the 1930s was probably a scary thing, it's because it was. She continued doing all kinds of research, but felt like her family had no choice but to go back to Moscow. She had a baby in 1934 and then another one in 1939. Then in 1940, her husband Albert was arrested on accusation of being an agent of foreign intelligence and espionage and sentenced to 10 years in a gulag prison camp where he eventually died. She was left to raise her almost 1-year-old and her 6-year-old alone. And she still did tons of research, including restoring cognitive and mental functions to patients after brain injuries, and she changed the field of psychology and was a co-founder of the Department of Psychology at Moscow State University. Pretty great, right? Based on the little I know about her, I love her, and I kind of hope that her husband actually was a spy of some kind, but who knows. She eventually died in Moscow in 1988 when I was 8 and she was 88. So back to the Zeigarnik effect. When she was working in Germany in the 1920s, she conducted a study on memory where she compared memory in relation to completed tasks compared to memories in relation to interrupted tasks. Her mentor, Kurt Lewin, had found that waiters who hadn't been paid yet for an order had much more recall of the details of the food ordered than they did for food that had already been paid for. They came up with a concept that he called task-specific tension and completed experiments showing that tasks that have been interrupted or are incomplete in some way are remembered better than completed tasks. The memories persist in both the conscious and the subconscious mind until the task has been completed. Other than learning about a cool lady, how does this make your life better? Because strategically using the Zeigarnik effect can help you create the kind of future that you want to live. There are 2 main ways to use the Zeigarnik effect. The first is to understand the ways the Zeigarnik effect is holding you back and causing you to live like you have one foot on the brake. And the other is to harness its power and use it to your advantage. First, Kurt Lewin and Bluma Zeigarnik clearly identified what they called task-specific tension. Part of your mind stays continually focused on something until it's completed or resolved. The open loop in your mind kills your ability to completely focus on something else. The unresolved thing keeps popping up into your mind. Our brains are awesome at helping us remember important things, but having a bunch of unresolved tasks is like getting one of those old school viruses on your computer that would cause a bunch of chat online with Burmese women websites to pop up from nowhere on your computer while you're trying to work. You're trying to go all in on an important project, but you remember that you still haven't rescheduled that dentist appointment that you can't make it to, haven't texted your neighbor back about bringing in their garbage cans, have a library book to go pick up, didn't finish looking into yoga studios near you, have 20 unfinished email responses and 3 unfinished expense reports to get to, a rebate form to fill out, an Amazon return to send back, and 2 meetings to schedule. I think it seems pretty normal to live that way to most people, but it really interferes with our ability to be effective. I love Cal Newport, and I talk about him a lot. Producing at your peak capacity, whatever that means for you, is what he calls deep work. He teaches that deep work equals time spent times intensity of focus. So if you want to produce more deep work, you either need to increase the time you spend producing work or the intensity with which you're able to focus. Dial up your intensity and you create amazing results in less time. You can't increase your focus if you have what he brilliantly calls attention residue. I love that description of it. Part of your attention stays on the last thing you did. This is why switching from task to task, or thinking we're multitasking, which is really just quickly switching from task to task, kills productivity. Skipping from one half-done thing to the next half-done thing makes us take way longer to finish everything than just starting something and sticking with it until it's finished. The open loop sucks part of our ability to focus away, which makes the only way to complete deep work to increase the amount of time we spend working on it. This can be work at our profession, personal development work, hobbies, health plans. It doesn't matter. Once you open a loop, try to close it quickly. If it's not possible to complete it, put it on a schedule at a specified time in a place that you're sure to see it and follow through with it so that you don't have to think about it again until that time and place. It really makes a big difference. Ruminating on things that haven't been resolved is an unnecessary waste of your precious energy and brain power. You're less likely to create an astonishing future that you're excited about if you can't ever get full control over your ability to focus. Having a way to capture ideas in a place that you're sure you'll come back to and take care of them is so important. Use a planner of some kind. We're not meant to have to keep to-do lists and shopping lists in our working memory all the time. That's why we know how to write, so we can free up our working memory to do way more exciting things like memorize all the lyrics to every Weird Al Yankovic song. Pierce Steele, in his book, The Procrastination Equation, says the number one poison to productivity and motivation is impulsivity. So if you want high productivity, which is nice, and high motivation, which is critical, you need to decrease your impulsivity. The best way to reduce your impulsivity? What do you think it is? I don't think of myself as remotely impulsive. That's not how I would describe myself, but I can get distracted. And he said that distractions are the number one cause of impulsive behavior. So maybe I am. The more you can engineer your environment to be distraction-free, the less your attention gets pulled in different directions and the more deep work you can produce in less time. That means no phone, no push notifications, no email dings or pings or pop-ups, no notifications of any kind. Nobody else around dictating where your attention is going to go. I personally think this is so good for your brain. Training your brain to be able to focus on what you want, when you want, for how long you want, creates amazing abilities now and the kind of brain that you want to have as you get older. So remember the Zeigarnik effect and close as many loops as you can throughout your day. David Allen, who wrote Getting Things Done, says that if something is going to take you less than 2 minutes to do, just do it right now instead of writing it on a to-do list. This makes sense. Close the loop. It's also why procrastination can be such a dream killer. It's a brain drain to know all the things that you should be doing but aren't. Open loops. And the things we're most likely to procrastinate on are the ones that are the most mentally and emotionally draining. So imagine what your life would be like if you had an attack mentality for the most unpleasant things you have to do rather than an avoidance mentality. How would your life be different if you gave yourself the gift of completing the unpleasant things that need to be done early? Then you wouldn't constantly have those intrusive pop-ups coming into your brain to schedule a mammogram or have an unpleasant conversation or do your taxes or figure out how to increase your muscle mass. The other way to use the Zeigarnik effect is to use it to your advantage. I think this is so cool. We know that our minds don't like unfinished business. High-level mathematicians and brilliant writers have been using this for years to push their work forward, and so can you, whatever your work is. Pretty great, right? Creative people often take a few minutes to go over their unfinished literary or artistic or mathematical or theoretical work from the day before they go to bed, especially if they feel stuck or confused or plateaued. Then they drift off blissfully to sleep with their solar system plushies, and their mind naturally works through the night to try to close those open loops. Oftentimes they'll wake up magically inspired, only it's not bibbidi-bobbidi-boo magic, it is Zeigarnik magic. Leaving open loops in our minds about things that need to be resolved can be great when used strategically. I would suggest that you decide that the solution that you need or the thing that you want already exists in the future. Think about what you're trying to solve or figure out. Then allow some time to pass while that loop is still open. Sleeping is great, but I also think taking a walk, doing the dishes, vacuuming the car, or refinishing your kitchen table are all great options too. Let your mind chew on things in the background while you do other things that don't require your full brain power. It's like a cliffhanger at the end of a great chapter, and you can't wait to find out how this mess is all going to work itself out. How does a person who loves lifting weights think about going to the gym? How can I eat fewer simple carbs but still love all my meals? How can I incorporate movement snacks into my workday without looking like a fool? What else could the root cause of my new general anxiety be? How can I celebrate and connect with my family and not eat what they're eating? What's the most important thing I should focus on tomorrow? In their awesome book, Organize Tomorrow Today, Jason Selk and Tom Bartaw suggest that you pick your top 3 things you need to do tomorrow to drive your life forward and write them down. Here's the key thing they suggest that I think is genius. I have a full focus planner and it has a spot for your top 3 to-dos for every day, so I've been doing that somewhat ineffectually for many years. But they suggest that you get really intentional and strategic about picking your top 3 things and then write them down with, wait for it, the time of day you will have them completed by. Magical. For me, that's so much more life-changing. I think my top 3 used to always be kind of, well, this is something it would be nice to get marked off my list. But picking an important task needed to close the gap between where I am now and where I want to be 3 months or 12 months from now, and then deciding what time I will have that thing done by is so much more real. Picturing what needs to be done and by what time and where you'll be and what you'll be wearing and whether you'll be hungry at that time of day and all the things that go along with it is so useful. Then you have this open loop of expectation in your mind while you sleep and you do your morning workout or walk your dog or whatever you do before you get to your tasks. And it seems to me that when go time arrives, I already have a sense of what exactly I need to do just to get started. Instead of getting halfway through my day and not really even knowing where to start on this thing I have written down, having that task-specific tension took away some of the resistance toward doing that thing. Dr. William Naus, world expert on procrastination, named a mindset that when I first heard of it, I was like, yes. He calls it anticipation of hassle. Right? Anticipation of hassle is a huge hindrance in my life. Having a mindset of an anticipation of hassle can prevent you from getting started on the thing that you really want to be doing to create the forward momentum in your life. So finding ways to bypass that mindset can be a big fat win. I think one way around it is to open the loop on that task early so that your subconscious can sort of figure out exactly where to start so it's not this pain in the ankle mystery of irritation anymore. All you have to do is get started at the right time. And doing the thing by the deadline you set for yourself feels amazing. Why not use open loops to become unstoppable? You can also use them like artists and scientists to solve creative problems. I know I'm gonna figure this out. I'm excited to find out how. Then review the information that you have so far. Okay, I know my current habits will not create the future I want for myself. Given the data I have, if I don't change anything, I'll most likely end up pretty frail and fragile. I'm headed for a path of low muscle mass, poor strength, limited mobility, and all of the problems that come with low muscle mass, including increased risk of diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and cancer. I'm already maxed out as far as how many things I can fit into a day, and I already know that I don't want to have to go to a gym with a bunch of scary meatheads. I wouldn't even know what to do there anyway, so it doesn't matter. I know the things I've tried in the past, like workout videos and a set of home exercise bands, haven't gotten me the results I needed. But I also know that I will do what I need to increase my muscle mass so that I can live more years lived in good health than most people, and I'll enjoy it. How? How am I going to do this? Then go about your daily and weekly tasks and let your default mode network scan everything 24/7 and bring you some insights. And be willing to try new things. Pretty cool, right? I hope you want to try it too. Thanks so much for being here. Your brain doesn't like unfinished business. I hope you'll remember the Zeigarnik effect and close your open loops so you can become a focusing ninja. Avoid shallow work where you jump from one uncompleted task to another, but recognize the opportunities to open a loop on purpose to discover unexpected answers to perplexing problems. Next week, we're going to talk about how to know what to eat. Until then, close some open loops and open some others, but don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a